So the URL here in week 2, Existentialism is a Humanism. First of all, do not be alarmed that it directs you to Marxists.org. That's a little bit of an extreme way of looking at things, but they do contain the documents. They have the transcript of the speech. It's the easiest place to find it, and this is the one we're going to be using, right? And why are we using the lecture? Well, the lecture precedes the book, right, by several years. Sartre eventually turns this speech into a book where he lays out even more of the philosophy, but it's just basically more words, a little bit more clarification on some of the points that he makes here. But in essence, the lecture is the thing that we need because for us, it contains the most important points. That existence precedes essence, that any choices that we make are made by us and us alone, and this idea that Sartre has of what it means to be responsible and what it means to act in good faith, bad faith, and to be in violation of those things. We begin with the idea that existence precedes essence. The way that, of course, Sartre describes it is using that paper knife example when he says, right, if one considers an article of manufacture as, for example, a book or a paper knife, one sees that it has been made by an artisan who had a conception of it. He goes on to talk about the fact that if God exists, which he does not for Sartre and for existentialists, for atheistic existentialists, that God would be an artisan, that we would be the creation, and that God would have some concept of what he was making. Because why would a God create anything that did not have a purpose? Sartre says, fine, good enough. But if God does not exist, then what we see is the natural process of birth, people creating other people, and that people are the only people who are responsible for determining what they are. In essence, what he means here is that with God out of the equation, we are self-determinant. We have free will, we have the ability to choose, and not only do we have the ability, but we have the responsibility of choosing. And we have the responsibility of choosing everything that we do. Even if we feel coerced into doing something, we still have made a choice to do so. Sartre does not bring this up exactly, but by extension of his logic, if we were kidnapped and forced into robbing a convenience store, we would still, in spite of that coercion, make the ultimate decision to do something. We may say it is at the peril of our life that we ignore the desires of a kidnapper or of a terrorist, but at the same time, yes, it is at the peril of our lives, but we choose either to abandon our lives because we will not make that choice, which is a choice, or we choose to do the thing that they are telling us to do. And we may well say to ourselves, right, this was not our choice, we had to do it, but for Sartre, that is not true. We are the only people responsible for our choices, and we will be for our entire lives. This is what leads into the existential anguish that he talks about a little bit further down, when he talks about the fact that existential anguish is this thought that everything that we do, we not only do because of our own choices, because of our own decision-making, but also that anything that we choose, we are saying to the rest of humanity, I choose this for you as well. If I choose to get married, then I am saying if every other person on the face of the earth decides to get married, that's fine. That is the choice that I made. It is a good enough choice for me. It's a good enough choice for everybody else. Which we can see leads to this doctrine of responsibility that if we rob somebody, and we're saying, yeah, we'd be fine if everybody robbed everybody else, then we are essentially saying we're comfortable with a society in which we don't trust anybody because anybody could be robbing us, anybody could lie to us. Sartre points out that this really makes the doctrine of existentialism one of the most hopeful and optimistic, because all we are ever doing is saying that what we choose, we believe is the best thing for humanity. Now, We may disagree with a lot of people that their thing is not what anybody would choose. We therefore are then free to choose to judge, to say, I don't agree with this choice. But we can never say that necessarily, in a way, it is right or wrong. Only that our judgment is that we don't believe that that choice is a choice that everybody should make, right? We can do that. We definitely have difficulty saying right and wrong, because right and wrong is a very unusual concept, right, when it comes to existentialism. There is, for example, here, the, give me just a moment, here we go, right? What Sartre really says is that, that this is a fairly simple thing, that judgment cannot be levied really on the morality or amorality of something, but rather whether a choice is made with respect to freedom. In this particular document, Sartre references a student of his who had to decide whether or not to fight in the war or to abandon his mother, right? And that this student was faced with an impossible task, right? His mother probably would not do well without him, but if he did go and join the war, it would signify that he cared for his country. The only choice that is right is the one that is made, according to Sartre. Judgment will come with either. People will judge you for doing whatever you do, but if your choice is made with the decision that this is what freedom looks like to you, then it is the right choice. Sartre goes so far as to say that somebody could indeed choose to join a Christian order as a priest, as long as that decision feels as if it is being made with free will and with the full consent of the person making it. That this may not be a decision that people agree with, but that the decision can only be made by a person. And this is the essential thing that happens with existentialism. People who delude themselves into believing that they are choosing something when they are instead relying on somebody else to make that decision for them. When they are saying, well, my religion says, my parents say, my profession says, instead of saying, that may very well be true, but I agree fully with what they are saying. Is it therefore possible to be a Christian existentialist and still fulfill all of the requirements of Sartre's existential beliefs? It is. However, it's going to be difficult to convince a lot of people in Sartre's position that you are making those decisions based on your own free will. And that is why Sartre really believes that existentialism is the only true, pure morality. That for an atheist who has no belief in God, it is really that person alone who can completely say there is nothing else pushing me into a decision. I am the ultimate decision maker, and I am the only decision maker because I don't believe in any other decision makers. Anyone who has a religious belief of any sort is suspect to Sartre, because that person may very well say, I'm doing this because I want to do it, but there is always a thought in the back of Sartre's mind that, are you really? You have another belief system that sort of has imposed itself upon you, or that you have allowed to enter into your worldview. Does it make those decisions for you? Sartre would even say existentialism itself is this idea of self-determination, and that you can't blame Sartre for being the person who's pushing people to make decisions, because or existentialism in general, because existentialism is nothing but somebody making their own decisions. So I realize this video has been a little bit long. We're going to cut this, and then we're going to go sort of to the next point, and I will see you in a moment.